In this video, I want to take you inside the bootcamp and show you actually what we will be doing. I want to go through the whole progress of what you will learn so you get a sneak peek of what's inside of the bootcamp. So everything is transparent, okay? So this is going to be high level. Obviously, I can't talk about every single little thing, but the main topics, the big topics, I will cover it in this video. If you register 2 weeks or more before the bootcamp starts, right? If you register like a month before the bootcamp starts or 3 weeks before the bootcamp starts, then we're going to have a one-on-one orientation and I'm going to get you set up before even the bootcamp starts. If the bootcamp is within the next 2 weeks, then we're just going to do it on the first day with everybody else, okay? So there's a huge advantage of doing it early. So if you get a chance, register early so you can get started and have that one-on-one. So that is that. So the first thing is the communication tools. The first access you're going to get access to Slack. Slack is a tool we're going to use to communicate. It's like Microsoft Teams. If you used that before, it's a way we can have a call. Mostly we can use chat. For our calls, we use Zoom, even if it's one-on-one, or the class we use Zoom. But in Slack, I'm pretty much always online and we just communicate. When you have a question, you post it on Slack, I answer it. We have a channel for like something that you just want to post and anybody can answer it, other students. Or you can DM me when something that's more about you, like something more personal, right? So we have that. We give you access to that. Then we use Jira. We get access to Jira. Jira is the most popular project management tool. In the job market, there is a really good chance you are going to use Jira. So we're going to manage all our work with Jira. I have a paid account, but for you, it's totally free. So I'll just add you to my account and you guys would use basically Jira, and that's how all the homework is going to be a Jira ticket, a Jira issue. If you've never used it, you get familiar with Jira because I'm almost certain that you are going to use Jira in the real world. It's the most popular project management tool. Then there's Google Drive. Google Drive is just small files, all the class notes and slides, PowerPoint slides and things like that. They will be in Google Drive. You will have access to that. And then the course itself, all the records, every session is recorded. And after the class, you can go watch that. In your account, under My Library, you will see the bootcamp, as well as all the other courses. And right when you register, you get access to 7 other courses, right? Python, Selenium, API testing, SQL, Docker, and a couple of more frameworks. You get access to those. It doesn't mean you have to go through them, but you have access to them for later on. What you need to go through is Python. So the first thing we're going to do is learn Python. And so the first few weeks, the homework is going to be go watch the Python course, right? It doesn't make sense to have the same lecture in the videos and same lecture during the live session. Live sessions are very precious. We want to use them. We want to be very efficient. So the homework is watch the Python videos. Then in class, let's talk about it. Let's do exercise. Let's solve problems. Let's see what your issues are. You still have to do your work, okay? That's why starting ahead of time, you already have access to those videos. So you can just go through the Python stuff, and when the bootcamp starts, you focus more on the exercises and not on the tutorials. Huge advantage there. So I strongly advise anybody to start early if you get the chance, right? If you're watching this and the bootcamp starts next week, still start early, but of course it's different than starting a month early, okay? So we learn Python, the programming language. So all the automation we do is based on Python programming language. In QA automation, Python, Java, and JavaScript are really popular. Of course, there are other languages being used, but in terms of popularity, those 3 are popular in automation. And Python is the easiest to learn, and it is very popular. So it's just no brainer to start with Python. So my bootcamp is Python based, right? You need a base language. You don't want to learn multiple languages at the same time. It's going to be confusing. You learn one language. All the other tools we learn is going to be applicable with other languages as well, okay? Everything is transferable to other languages. So we learn Python. We spend a few weeks learning Python. Then we go to the Selenium part. Selenium is quite easy. We use Python to write Selenium stuff. So if you don't have a Python background, of course, Selenium is not going to make a lot of sense, right? So that's why we spend a little bit more time on Python. Then we get into Selenium WebDriver specifically, where we automate front-end, the websites, right? We're going to test websites. So we're going to do a lot of examples with an e-commerce site. We're going to build an e-commerce site. I'm going to just give you tutorials on how to build your own. I have my own. You have full access to it, the back end and the front end, but you're also going to build your own. It's pretty simple. It's a WordPress website that we're going to build, and we're going to test that. That's going to be our main test site because we have full access to it, including the database, right? So we learned about Selenium. We learned about, basics of Selenium, standalone scripts and things like that before we get to the framework part. Okay, so that's the first two main topics, right? Meanwhile, of course, we're going to learn about test cases, testing and front end, back end, servers, right? How do software work? Of course, there's lectures about that, but the main topics will be Python, then Selenium. And in terms of documenting test cases, we use a website called case.io. It's free. Go ahead and explore it. It's right there on the screen. Explore it. You get free account, create test case and stuff. So we'll talk briefly about manual testing. I don't cover a lot of manual testing, but I give you guidance on how to get started with manual, because I'm a strong believer that you can do a lot of automation stuff without having any manual background, right? Manual is a lot of terminology and processes. Automation is more technical. So you can totally learn the technical stuff on the side doing the manual stuff, like the terminology and things, or even holding it off for later on. We can do that. So two main topics. After that, we start to talk about APIs and backend testing, right? When we say backend testing, it can be database, it can be API. So we'll talk about RESTful API. We focus on RESTful API. So this e-commerce website we're going to use, it has a full-fledged production-ready APIs that we're going to use, RESTful APIs, tons of them, right? Tons of APIs. So it's very much realistic. It's not like this dummy test APIs we're going to do. We're going to practice on real APIs. So we're going to talk about what are APIs, how to use them, how to test them, what's important, what's not important, what to look out for, things like that. Then we use a tool called Postman. Postman is an extremely popular tool. We're not going to use Postman for automation. We're going to use Postman to manually test APIs. Then whatever we did in Postman, once we know how the API works in Postman, then we take it to Python. We're going to do our automation in Python. So that's going to be the main thing, right? So we're going to spend some time just learning what APIs are. We're going to build like the small little application using third-party APIs just to see how APIs get integrated into application. We're going to create this little trivia app using Python. All of that is going to be in Python. We're going to make API calls with Python. So we learn backend testing and API testing. Then we get into SQL, right? It's going to be just very brief because I have a full SQL course and you can get to that later. So what I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you homework to watch the first few lectures, right? Maybe 5-6 lectures of SQL. So you got the base, the basics of SQL. So we're going to use SQL in our automation. Then after the bootcamp is over, I want you to go and continue going through the SQL, right? We're going to learn how to read data. Then later on, you're going to have to learn how to write data, because in our automation, for the most part, we're going to use how to read data. All right, so we covered Python. We're going to cover Selenium. We're going to cover API testing. Then we're going to cover SQL. Right after that, we're going to start to put it together, all of that into a framework. So we're going to have one framework. The framework is going to be based on PyTest, right? PyTest is the most popular Python framework. So we're going to build a framework with PyTest. Now, everything comes together. The front end, the back end, SQL, everything. We're going to build a full-fledged framework, and we're going to start to basically write tests. We're going to start automating tests. There's a base framework we're going to take, and we're going to start to build on top of that. So we're just going to practice. We're going to spend several weeks just practicing writing tests. We're going to write front end. 1 week, we're going to do like front end test, Selenium test. The next week, we're going to do back end test. Then after that, we're going to do front end test. Then after that, we're going to do back end test. Right? Meanwhile, just learning a bunch of things in the process. And in between, when you have a lot of homework, I'll have lectures that don't require homework, right? I'll have a lecture about like how does front end and back end work? How do you get a server? I'll show you how to get a free server on the cloud, or how to get a paid server on the cloud, how to use it, how to install stuff onto it. Things like that. In the middle, I'll inject different topics, so we'll give you time to do the homework from the previous weeks. So that's how we go. And we spend a lot of time on the framework stuff, because on the job, that's what you do, right? You just practice, you just automate tests. And when we're building framework and automating, that is a lot of majority of the work you're going to do is that. So I need you to practice that. And by the end, to get the certificate, there's a list of requirements. And one of the requirements is you have to automate 100 test cases, right? A mix of front end and back end. So I'll get you started with that. And after the 3 months, the project or the internship basically is going to be that. You're going to continue to automate. You're going to send me your code. I'm going to review it. Every week I expect you to submit some kind of code for me to review. That's a big thing, right? I give you feedback on your code and we go back and forth like that until you need it, really. There's no end into that. Like whatever you have time to finish the 100 test cases and more if that's what you want to do, which I think you should, right? So that's what we're going to do. We focus on that. So at a high level, that's what it is. After that, we'll talk about, now we have a framework, we have a bunch of tests. We know about Linux, we know about Docker. Docker is really important. Now we get into CI/CD. We're going to first learn Jenkins, right? We're going to learn 2 CI/CD tools. We're going to learn Jenkins, we're going to learn GitLab. because I think they're pretty important and pretty awesome. So we take what we built, the framework, and we set it up in Jenkins. We set it up in a CI/CD tool. We create some dummy pipelines. Then inside of the dummy pipelines, we create Jenkins jobs, which will run our automation. So this terminology right now, when I say Jenkins job, it's not going to make sense, right? Unless you've been through it. So just take the big picture, right? Just take the fact that we're doing things that are being done in real world, being done in real companies, right? So I'm taking that experience and giving you that experience. So even though those terminologies don't make sense, please feel free to pause this and go search like Jenkins. Even go to job search and do Jenkins. See how many times does the word Jenkins show up in QA jobs, right? That will give you an idea of if those topics are actually important. So that's really a research that you can do. So we do that. We go into CI/CD, we learn Jenkins, and after that, we talk about basically the last like week or so. We talk about, resume prep, next steps, what are the other topics you should be learning. We talk about how to build a portfolio, and things like that. Pretty much next step, we focus on that. And then you just continue to work on it. You got to submit code. Again, it's a game of practice, a game of skills. So you keep practicing. I'll keep giving you feedback, reviewing your code. It's really important for somebody to look at your code and review it. Of course, you can have ChatGPT review it for you. That's really important. But in addition to that, having a human review it is also very important. So that is pretty much a sneak peek into what we're going to go through. There's a lot of report generation and things like that. It's just a full-fledged automation or engineering experience you're going to gain. So that is what's covered at a high level, right? I'm just from 3,000 feet looking down at what we're going to do. So if you have anything that's unclear, let me know. If you have a question saying like, oh, why do we have to learn this particular thing? I'll be very happy to explain why we need that topic. If you have a topic that you would like to learn and like, how come you're not covering this? Then you let me know. Mobile is not covered, so it's mainly I focus on web testing. Usually want to start with something like that, like one thing instead of doing a bunch of things. Then the next step is you take all the skills you learn and you go to the mobile thing. Once you have this foundation, learning new things becomes so much easier because a lot of it is transferable to new skills. Okay. For example, Python. Once you know Python, you can use Python in a lot of different things. To automate the web, you use Python and Selenium, right? To automate mobile, you use Python and use Appium, which is another tool just like Selenium, but specific for mobile. So it's just the growth becomes exponential after that. So that's really what I have for you in this video. Hopefully I made it clear. Hopefully I gave you a really good glimpse of what it looks like inside, how it goes. This is my office. Basically, this is going to be you and I for 2 hours every Tuesday and Thursday. And after that, a lot of the work gets done after class. In class, usually I'm talking and you're listening. Sometimes coding, but most of the time just listening, taking notes. And then you watch the recording and you do the homework. That's how it goes. This is pretty much what you're going to get. But the main important thing is you're going to get the skills. And I'm going to hammer it down until you actually get it. All right? We're going to keep working as long as it takes. All right? So that's what I have for this video.